Hello everyone, how's it going? Welcome back to another episode here of the Weekly Poker Showdown, brought to you by Party Poker. I'm your host, Jaime Staples, and this week on the podcast, we have Benny Glaser, a legend of the game, multiple-time bracelet winner. He's had some success in the WPT World Online Championships going on this summer as well, so it's really great to speak with him, talking about playing high-stakes poker, high-stakes mixed games, his life in poker. I think you're really going to enjoy the conversation. But before we get to that, let's talk about some of the online poker news from this week. First of all, I want to wish everyone good luck that is down to day 3 in the WPT World Online Championships main event. 10 million guarantee, and it beat the guarantee. There was a total of 10.1 million in the prize pool. The winner is going home with $1.7 million. That's a lot of dollars. The final table is going to be commentated on by Lynn Gull-Martin, Jason Kuhn, and Isaac Haxton. When you hear this, you might have missed it, but you can always go back and check it out. Party Poker TV on Twitch, as well as there'll be highlights on YouTube. Just check it out. Amazing event, amazing series in general, and there is still a few events to go with the Turbo going on and the Heads Up. So that's all going on this week. Good luck, everyone, in the main event. History, poker history in the making. Excited to report on the winners very soon. Next up, let's report on the results of the mini main event. That was the $1,000 buy-in with the $5 million guarantee. Now, 5 players made the final table of the mini main event from a satellite, value-added satellite, winning $1.4 million between them, $1.4 million. So huge congrats to those people making it through the satellites. The final 4 players did agree to a deal here, and they continued to play for an extra $50,000 in the prize money. Now, Artis Bolotis claimed the most prize money. He won $535,000, but he ended up actually finishing in 3rd place after the deal was made four-handed. So Bolotis qualified on the back of a $55 Gladiator ticket. Congratulations on that. Renan Carlos Bruchy became the first ever WPT mini main event champion, banking more than $504,000 after beating Nishita Verbitici heads up. So incredible result. Congratulations, Renan Carlos Bruchy, on being the mini main event champion, winning nice $500,000. Pretty legit, my friend. Congratulations on that. Next up, we have some live poker news. Live poker news, really, like in a place with people and chips and things. The Aria Casino in Las Vegas has started up running tournaments once again. So they reopened on July 1st, but only for cash games. The casino's hosting $140 buy-in tournaments, $3,000 guaranteed every day at 11 a.m. So they're back in action. The Venetian currently running a deep stack series, offering $400K in prize money. So seems like tournaments are back in action in Las Vegas. I'm curious what all of you think about getting back to live poker. I spoke with some guests today about that exact thing. When are you going to be comfortable to go back playing in tournaments? I'd love to hear from you. I mean, tweet me at Jaime Staples. Seriously, when do you feel comfortable getting back to playing live poker? Because I certainly miss it. But the balance between that when I want to play and when not, I don't know. It's an individual decision, but I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. Anyways, live poker is back in Las Vegas. Let's get to the roll of honor now. Let's talk about some of the nice results from some notable names this week in online poker tournaments. First, we got to start with a Ludovic guy like Ludo. He won $44,000, excuse me, not 100, Ludo, 44K. All right. It's a mid 5-figure. It's a nice one. It's nothing new for Ludo, but it's a nice one. He won the 150K guaranteed Mix Max Turbo Progressive Knockout. So congratulations, Ludo, on the results. Phil Mighal placed first in the WPT 8 Max Weekender to win over $78,000. So congratulations, Phil. And the WPT Superstack was won by Tomas Adamiski for more than $40,000. So congratulations, Tomas. Over on the WSOP, we had Andrew Kelsall took first place of over $275,000 in the WSOP Global Casino Championship. And the final WSOP online bracelet was won by Connor Dryden, who won over $1.4 million from the 10K guaranteed WSOP Super Millions. Connor Dryden. I mean, who would have guessed? Literally everyone. You're too good, Connor. Chill out, man. You're winning too many tournaments. It's enough. That's going to be it for the preamble today. That's enough of the online poker news. I'm comparing myself to Connor Dryden. It's so difficult, you know? It's like, how do you get to a Connor Dryden level in life? Connor, please come on the podcast. Connor, will you come on the podcast? I need to ask your question about poker and how to win so many tournaments. Seriously, now we're done with the online poker news. Let's get into the conversation with Benny Glaser. Enjoy. Joining me on the podcast today, I have Benny Glaser. Benny, thanks for taking the time today.
Thanks for having me, Jim.
So I'm looking forward to the opportunity to get to know you because we haven't met in poker before. So I have a bunch of questions about your poker origins and your success in poker, and hopefully some things that I can learn from and the audience can learn from out there. So I want to start off with the origin story. And I understand that your father played online poker. So how did you find poker, and did that relate at all to you finding the game?
Yeah, so that was how I found poker, essentially. Stumbled into him playing and found it interesting. So I kind of railing and watching and trying to formulate strategy.
Okay.
So that was essentially how I found it from online that way. And then that kind of turned me on to the other, uh, the TV and stuff. It was actually quite a lot at that time. It was just like 15 years ago, really,
Right.
when there was
Okay.
like,
The
back
heyday.
in the UK on Channel 4 every night, there was, things like late night poker and stuff with a bunch of legends, or even like WPT coverage as well. That was going on back in the day. And that was really exciting that, you have the big characters in the game as well. It was really entertaining. And yeah, I was really fascinated by it and just found it cool and interesting and like a mental challenge as well. Yeah.
So back then, was your dad playing limit poker? Was he playing tournaments, or like what was the scene back then?
Um, it was both. Same with when I was starting playing, like dipping my toe into play money,
Yeah.
and that was like both limit hold'em and also cash as well. So I think I think he was mixing it up between a bit of everything. I think mostly limit cash and I think a bit of tournaments occasionally. And then so I'd started to get more interesting in it, more interested in it. Sorry, and then when I was at university, I started playing tournaments live more um, when I was 18, 19, and that was pretty interesting. For like we had a pub league and things like that, and
Right.
my house that I was staying with, we had a league of poker, like our own little home game as well. So yeah, that was really interesting. That was just no limit tournaments. Yeah, but so online is a bit different as well.
Right. Okay. So the mix games are interesting because it seems like it runs in the blood, the mix game action. So how did you make your way from No Limit Hold'em to playing multiple games, PLO, PLO eights, triple draw, single draw? Like what was that transition like, and what drew you to wanting to play those games?
So yeah, it was just limit and no limit that my dad was playing, and then he started playing PLO8, which I just it kind of blew my mind straight away, and I was like really interested by that. So I
Yeah.
started trying that out and was yeah really fascinated by it, and I think pretty quickly discovered that it was very lucrative, and that and a little bit of PLO as well. On the one or two sites I was playing, I think they were very profitable,
Right.
and yeah, I'd found that both enjoyed it, and more, it was a new thing. It was more challenging in a way,
Mm.
um, more to think about, and yeah, I think the profitability of it back when other people were just as clueless in it, yeah, then that was very interesting. And then from there, it was probably a few years later, maybe 3 or 4 years later, I think, when I discovered another site, Full Tilt back in the day that had the nosebleed games with which were mostly mixed, really. They were
Yeah,
mostly
the 8 game, the 10 game, like yeah, man. I
got the
love it.
legend. Yeah, Gus Hansen and Ivy, that's what they're mostly playing aside from, battling heads up with Isildur and stuff. But they had all those amazing games were mostly mixed and, both the 8 game and then when like straight triple draw and stuff like that happened, that was like fascinating to me. And yeah, I started being interested from there and started learning by observing and then eventually copying and practicing.
Man, those games, how many careers did those games start just watching them? The inspiration
Question. Yeah.
of watching the legends playing mixed games. Like I remember trying to get into games with Red Pros, like at 4-8 game. You know, I'd play the 4-8 and like pretty much get crushed, but I just wanted to play with the Red Pros, man, and figure these games out. Like so nostalgic, dude. What
Yeah,
a time.
they were a lot of fun for sure. Yeah, I know. I used to always love hang out on the rail with those games, and
Yeah,
they were the biggest stakes running at that time. It was just really exciting to watch. And
yeah.
yeah, I also remembered like they had their own little tables that were like, tiny stakes, might like 50 cent, a dollar limit even. They had like a stake that sometimes they would sit every so often, and I would try and get into. Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
So how much success did you have in like no limits sort of poker before you started doing a lot of work in the mixed games? Like what was the transition like for you in discovering those games?
I'm trying to think of the exact uh, timeline. I think I hadn't had a ton of success in No Limit and Limit. I was still kind of still being a bit of a poor student at that time, hadn't had much money, so like I wasn't playing high stakes and I wasn't like grinding a ton,
Mm.
every day. So I hadn't really built up a bankroll at that time. I think I'd made a little bit of money, and probably mixed games was more where I started to progress and build the bankroll more through there and grind up through the stakes there. Really.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I have to say, dude, I built $10 up to $100 at the 20 cent, 40 cent 8 game. Do you remember the 8 game on Stars back in the day? They had a
Of
20
course.
cent, 40 cent, and that
Yeah.
I don't know what it is about noobs that are new to poker, but they love the mix games, and so that was where I needed to prove myself before I found my way to the devil's side of no limit hold'em tournaments. So
Yeah.
no, it's really nice talking to you about the mixed games. Before you turned professional, did you look into having a career in another field? Was poker ever in question in terms of what you wanted to do with your life, or were you going a different path?
That's kind of a complicated answer, I guess.
What?
I was planning to go down a different path. Yeah, I was uh, planning or hope like outside of university. I was then planning to go to a music institute, was going to
Ah,
guitar performance, things like that.
right.
Um, but due to essentially health reasons, that was impossible, really. So for that time, I had to kind of abandon that, and then uh, essentially found my attention to poker more, and that increased from there. Yeah,
Right.
so I think that was probably the only other avenue or like possible career I was pursuing around that time.
Does music still play a part in your life? Do you play it all, or are you really interested in it, or is it taken aside with poker?
Well, both actually, like all three things. I think like I both still play. I'm both really interested in it, but it's obviously taken aside to poker for the last 10 years or so.
Mm-hmm.
Like I played, the guitar since I was six,
Wow.
and still play. Um, I mean, still play. I'm just like wistfully looking over at my guitars that I haven't really touched very much recently. So yeah, I would like to have more time spent on them. Really, yeah, I would like to be able to have more time and more freedom to kind of do what I want more with music. But obviously, that's going to happen with anything when I'm devoting so much of my time to poker. That's yeah.
Do you think later in life that'll be something that you add back in, or have you just like
I,
it's just a
I
hobby forever?
I really hope so, actually.
Mm.
And it's something like over the last year or so I've been thinking more and more about. Especially, I don't know, there are certain poker things like I'm trying to think in the most kind of honest answer is that over the last year, where like some of the times I've been either less happy with poker or something, where I've been thinking we don't have a ton of progression much further. I was trying to say it without sounding like arrogant at all, but it's like um where I've had success and accomplished things there. And in some ways, I think overall in life, I might be happier with music, for example,
Right.
um, where, yeah, in terms of life and those goals, I might be just happier with that because it's something that's always been on the back burner and it's really been my main passion. It's something I actually like more than poker as a thing. I
Yeah.
mean, poker's, you know, great for accomplishing things and making money, etc.
Hmm.
Um, but I don't love it quite the way I love music, or at least not as much anymore. I kind of, I guess, got a bit jaded with it. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think it's really interesting. I don't think it's arrogant at all to say that. I mean, you've got a couple bracelets, right? You've had a lot of success. So, like, what is there in poker to where it's like, okay, well, now what are you going to try and compete in Bobby's room? Like, you can try and do that, but that's going to be an interesting political situation that you're going to have to navigate through to get into there, right? To get into
Well,
those games.
I did actually play in Bobby's room, but yeah.
So you've done that. So I think you hit the nail on the head of something that's interesting in poker, which is poker careers tend to be fleeting, and it's a game that you can play until you're 80 years old. So the
Yeah.
question as to why and perhaps what is wrong with the game or what is wrong with the community or the aspirations of it, I think is interesting because that shouldn't that isn't a feeling in other sports, I don't think, or in other games where people are just like, I've done what I've set out to do, and that's it. Nonetheless, if that's how you feel, I want to go to whatever gig you put out there, whatever album you put out there, Benny. I'm in. Well, just let me know what genre of
Sounds good.
music.
Mostly rock to, yeah, anything rock, hard rock and metal and that kind of stuff.
Cool, man.
Um, yeah, kind of guitar oriented music is what I prefer to play myself. But as far as listening, I love the wide variety. Yeah.
So what about goals then? I mean, sort of piggybacking off that perhaps
Yeah.
doom and gloom that I presented. Like how do you navigate moving yourself forward in poker? What
So
do you
I
work
was,
towards?
yeah, I was going to say a couple of things about that. So one like mindset I had over the past few years that has kind of motivated me and propelled like more of my efforts into poker was the thought that it's limited in terms of uh, it's probably going to become less profitable over time. It's going to be difficult for there to be a time in the future where it's more profitable than it is right now. So I was kind of trying to make the most of it in the past, where things like knowledge is limited. So like I know my skill gap is greater, for example, in various ways. So that's why I put more of my effort into it in the short term. And now it kind of feels like now might not be different, like incredibly different to a few years from now, in terms of games getting probably progressively tougher.
Mm.
And there probably is, progressively more and more available info out there and easier ways for people to learn and get very good pretty quickly with uh, not much practice, but essentially just executing what you've seen in ways. So that was one reason why I'd delved into poker more and put all my efforts in that recently. Um, I plan to keep playing it for sure, but maybe not in the full time capacity that I am now or that I have been. Um,
Right.
yeah. And I can't remember the rest of your question, but yeah.
No, I think you hit it on the head there. So what about mixed games in relation to how the poker world evolves? You say the games will likely get tougher, and I think that's true. I don't think people get worse at games or worse at sports over time. They get better, right? And that just makes sense.
Yeah.
That's how it should be. So what is it like in mixed games? Like, let's say PLO8, for example, which I know you play a lot. What is the skill gap like right now for you as a world-class player and the average people that are playing it? I'll throw out an example of a $55 PLO tournament, for example, okay? And then is that change going to be different in mixed games than it is in No Limit Hold'em, in your opinion, or do you think it should be pretty linear?
I think just the nature of No Limit Hold'em in terms of the ease is just much easier to both acquire information and progress in terms of limited, well, I mean, not limited. I was going to say number of scenarios that occur, but fewer scenarios. It's not like limited. Fewer scenarios occur in Hold'em than in PLO8, for example. And there are more combos in various ways of cards and things. So in that way, I think the learning ability in terms of speed of progression can be slower, and in terms of having I'm not explaining this very well, but in terms of having the info that you can execute to improve your game and finding knowledge, like it's harder to say this hand is an open for a chart, for example, where it's just much easier, more accessible than No Limit. Or this is a 3-bet in whatever scenario. It's just going to be much more complicated in these kind of games. So PLO8, as you picked, is one of the more complicated games in that way, for sure. And yeah, as you said, No Limit is obviously more popular, and so naturally there's going to be a lot more accessible material for knowledge in that.
You know what I find so interesting about PLO8 is like just the pure amount of different outcomes that can happen on the river is so extreme. Like in Hold'em, it's like win, loss, chop sometimes. Whereas in PLO8, it's like the frequency of win all, win half, win quarter, win third, and how that must change the math is so complex, dude. I'm still befuddled by it 10 years after playing it for the first time. It's intense.
Yeah, there are definitely interesting things like that can happen on river where, you want to get your opponent to fold a chop. There are so many things that are difficult to execute where they're especially going to be unnatural to players just like newly discovering it or who are trying to improve at it. So there are interesting things like that. And I do think facets like that are one reason why it's slower to get tougher in those games. So to your question, I think like in a 55 PLO8, my ROI would be very high. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Yeah, it's even like an EV calculation on the river. It's you think about No Limit, it just seems so simple compared to what you would have to calculate in PLO8. So I like it, dude. I like it. I need to play more actually. So
it's one of my favorite games, but yeah, also as far as like the future, I know there are going to be more kind of solvers, as it were, or there's more software going into that, or has been in probably the not so distant past. There's some of that probably going on Stars. Yeah, and there might be more of that in the future. Hopefully not so much in the ways that it was, but it could potentially make it tougher. But I think it's a much more niche market for one thing. Yeah,
it is. Yep, absolutely. Deuce to Seven Single Draw as well is a game that you particularly love. I was just watching an interview with you actually. I think it was EPT Monaco where you were talking about Single Draw. So explain your love of Single Draw to the people out there that have probably never played it. You know, it's not spread on Party Poker. I think it's spread only on like Stars and Tilt at the moment. So there's limited places where you can play it. What's the deal with Deuce to Seven Single Draw?
It's an awesome game, man. It's just a pure poker game. I mean, it's always said to be like maybe the purest form of poker that there is. But as guys like Doyle, have always said, they've always loved it as well. Remember Doyle showed up for the 10K single draws, like his last tournament last year, I think it was. And it's just such a cool game in terms of room to maneuver and find creative ways and ways to, I guess, find edges or things. That was like one of the things that kind of fascinated me originally in poker, where I can actually be creative in ways of finding, I can find a bluff in this line, for example,
Right.
or just thinking of new things outside of the box as far as just like coming up with strategy. I used to find that really interesting. And while I've kind of known most things by now, and I still think that No Limit Single Draws is one of the games where there's more potential for things. I'm trying to think how accurate that is compared to like some of the No Limit work I've done lately in Hold'em. And it's interesting. It's partly like it probably has the potential to like be solved theoretically, but it's so different in a lot of ways. It's just, I'm trying to explain it for someone who hasn't played it much before, but
Right. Yeah.
it's also a game that is naturally, you can progress from No Limit Hold'em, for example, to there. It's a
Right.
game that historically has done, well, not the game. People have done well in the game who have played it for the first time from No Limit Hold'em, for example. There's like at least 2 or 3 cases where, like in the World Series, someone never played it before. And
Yeah, they won it, didn't they?
yeah, there's like Jen Harmon and Matt Perrins and people like in the who's the other? Christian Pham, I think was his last name.
I think it was the 1500, the 2500. Some guy won it on his first time ever playing.
Yeah,
Misregistered or something.
But I think it was 2 years ago. I think it was Christian Pham was his name. I think he misclick registered it live, and just ended up winning it. And Jen Harmon like was famous for just being shown a rough chart by Negreanu for it, and it just ended up winning the 1500. And things like that. It's really cool. I even won my first like massive stars free roll. I remember a No Limit Single Draw back years ago.
I remember like those, dude.
Thousands of people, and I just picked my first one.
Yeah.
So I'm just using it as a way to illustrate that it's not like such an alien game if someone wants to try it for the first time. It still has like some concepts that you can apply from No Limit Hold'em. Both mostly in tournaments, it's probably more applicable. Like when you know kind of like some value thresholds, you know reasonable bluffs, and ways to apply tournament pressure, things like that.
And I imagine the creativity with it being no limit, so you have the full spectrum of bet sizing, and then only one draw. So really, it's so human versus human. That's what's interesting, is that like it's less defined than no limit in its equities, or it would be in theory if you had to play 5 hands against someone. Like it would just be kind of like, well, who knows what's going on here? It's just like it's almost like back to the old school poker of like, who is this player, and like what can I figure out about them as the first question, which is very foreign to online play at the moment. So.
That's one cool thing about it, and especially live as well. It's a big thing. Like for live reads, it's quite a big game with that. That's partly why I think some of the old school players still like it and do well in it in some formats. Um, yeah, but it's like this guy's pot bet on the river, and you just have limited information. It's like
Yeah.
we both drew one card, and then what happens? I don't know. I have a king low or king high. I don't know if it's just is he bluffing or not? It's
Yeah.
just like pure in that way.
Yeah.
Um,
Is he over bluffing? Is he under bluffing? Like, you just have to guess, basically. Yeah. It's so sick. I like it. Um,
yeah.
so let me ask you a couple questions that might help the aspiring professionals out there, the very serious amateurs that are looking to take their game to another level. And this doesn't necessarily have to apply to just mixed games. It can be for no limit as well. So looking back at your career thus far, was there anything that stands out where you said, oh, that really held me back, or I made a mistake there, or I didn't act fast enough there? Is there something that stands out of like, I could have done that better to help me progress to where I am now faster?
Yeah, I think a lot of things. That's quite a detailed question. I could have a lot of answers for. Um, I think there are quite a few things in terms of um, things like self-awareness. I think is a really important trait in a poker player, and things like trying to be accountable of yourself and like have an accurate like read on your strengths and your weaknesses. So you can play to your strength more, might be uh, something that's more profitable. It's also what do you want? Do you want something that's more profitable, or do you want more fun? If you want to be strictly a pro, then you can just potentially just specialize in one area that's going to make you the most money.
Right.
So if it's both, then like the variety and fun of mixed games were attractive to me. I know that wasn't my highest ROI things for like a few years. I was playing it not just to make the most money, but things like fun and interest.
Yeah.
So it's very person dependent in terms of what do you want both now and like in the future if you have goals. And also, so for myself, there are things like I'm sure I could have been probably more honest with myself in terms of like finding some of my weaknesses and fixing them or improving upon them. Or I would
Right.
rather focus on other areas. I think that's generally,
Wouldn't we all?
yeah, I was gonna say
Yeah.
it's generally a human nature thing to do. It's like
Mm.
it can be difficult or even like painful to focus on your weakness and like admit to yourself, okay, I'm not doing this well. I'm making mistakes here.
Hmm.
I should try and fix this. That's like a difficult thing for most people to do rather than being like, yes, I'm crushing this. This is awesome. Let's do more of the thing that I'm crushing on, Yeah.
Yeah. You hear that from a lot of new poker players. The crushing, the ego, the
Yeah.
like the hype. And I find that's like how a lot of people get into the game. It certainly was for me. I thought I was God's gift to poker, man. It's like I'm the best. I'm the
Yeah.
hometown hero. I can crush this game. Like good to go. And then you meet guys like Benny Glaser out there on the table, and it's just like, well, maybe I'm not God's gift to poker. That
It's
was a harsh realization, man.
kind of the Dunning-Kruger effect, really.
Yes, that's
You
it.
just don't know, and it's hard to have like a proper view of everything. Like, yeah, as you said, I knew like I thought I was years ago. I thought I was amazing in certain games, like especially like '08 and things like that. When again, without trying to sound arrogant, like people thought I was like one of the best in the world at it at that time. I was like, yeah, I think to myself, I probably am. And then like years later, I'm like, I was making so many mistakes.
Right.
Like I was just
Hmm.
just bad in like a bunch of areas. And I think it's just hard to be so realistic to yourself in certain ways. Like humans, just their emotions just get in the way in various ways. So to have a proper like analytical and rational view of everything, you have to kind of try and leave your ego aside. I think it's really quite an important thing
Yes.
in poker for your progression. Even though it sounds hard, try leave the ego, off the table and off your study, and try and actually be very honest in things. Because I knew like for the past years there were like a bunch of people who were working harder than me in certain ways. Like even if I thought I was beating whatever, when I see like other people who have been in the lab for a whole summer in whatever, like there are still guys like Matt Ashton, I know, just like studies every day. He's just for sure one of the best all-round players in the world. Like I know he's in the lab constantly, and it's kind of motivating in that way to know that there are other people who are doing so much more work than you. But yeah, there's a way that like I could have not rested on my laurels in some way.
Right.
You you can naturally feel good about what you've accomplished or progress you've made. That's completely natural. But yeah, at the same time, overconfidence is kind of a dangerous thing. Yeah.
Yep. That makes
yeah.
sense. I think that's really useful for a lot of people out there, because it's almost everyone in poker fell for that. It's like you get this short-term feedback, and then you want to project it into the future because that makes sense to a human brain, but poker doesn't work like that. And so I think that's, if you could get that lesson earlier, I think that's a fast track, 100%. So I want to ask about the WPT WOC going on this summer on Party Poker. Mm-hmm. Have you been playing any events, and how has it gone?
I have done fairly well. I made a final table in the 3K PLO.
Oof.
And
damn,
and busted on the third hand. So
ooh,
that
okay, wow.
that didn't go as well as I hoped. Yeah, but that was cool, even though it was quite disappointing. Cashed another one. I think this time, yeah, I had a deeper run in. I think it was the previous WPT a few months ago. I got like 11th or so,
right,
in the 3K main event. But yeah, I've been playing most of them this series, and yeah, it's been fun. It was nice to see some PLO8 in there as well. For sure, I was in those, and yeah, also even like the mini ones in the 300s and stuff. Yeah, they were fun.
awesome, man. What do you think about? These are very deep structures. Like, I don't think there's ever been an online PLO8 or PLO this deep before. So do you like that as a player, or like if you had to design a tournament, what would it look like for you in relation to these WPTs?
I think they would probably be similar. I think on one or two of the events, I think the PLO8 specifically, when the field was smaller, I feel like that might not have needed to be a 3-day, because like there was a shorter day two, I think it was, to go from to the final table or from in the money. I think was a much shorter day. So I think that one specifically might have been able to be a 2-day. But I think the other ones have been good. Like definitely all the no limit ones where the fields are big. I think their structures have been really good. Yeah, and there's still a lot of play deep. I'm kind of thinking back without trying to be biased on my own experiences, where I've had very sick scenarios deep, where like in the last one I was in first with 18 left with like 40% of the chips in play or something, and then like 11th or something.
Oh no.
So that was very disappointing. But I think I was trying to remember like how the play was at that time, and I think it was still like fairly deep. Yeah, I think the structure was very good. Yeah.
Yeah. especially online, like getting more hands an hour. Like the live, it'd have to be like a 6-day live tournament to be the same structure. So it might set the record for the deepest PLO8 tournament ever. It might be. Before I let you go here, I want to ask you about live, because you've got multiple bracelets. You've obviously got fond memories, I'm hoping, of Las Vegas. I'm hoping it's been positive with a couple of bracelets to your name. So when do you think you're going to play live poker again? When is it going to happen?
Seems like it might be unlikely to this year. There are a couple of possible events that are rumored to be happening, or they're at least like roughly scheduled to take place. There's, I think, a UKIPT Blackpool.
Right.
I had some friends going to that, so I was possibly considering it, but it seems like it's unlikely to happen at this point. I think there was the Masters of Poker in Amsterdam as well, which I've never been to and would like to. So that was one I was interested in November. Again, it's hard to say how likely that is to happen. So it seems like it's likely to not be this year, unfortunately. And like Vegas with the World Series being postponed until October, November, maybe December. Again, it seems like it's pretty unlikely to happen, unfortunately, I think. And yeah, I don't know what the next one. I'm still like somewhat hopeful for the Aussie Millions, because that's like maybe my favorite stop every January. So I'm hoping like that's enough time that, the situation over there has improved. But it's probably a thing of like, if I go there, I'll probably have to self-quarantine for 2 weeks, as is the case right now at least. Or they just weren't letting anyone in at all. But yeah, that is my favorite stop. So I'm still hopeful that's going ahead. So it's kind of a bit different from my hopes versus like actual reality in terms of, I don't know, man. I would like to have a better answer than probably not for a long time, I think.
Yeah. You miss it though.
I for sure miss it. I miss like everything about it in terms of like seeing friends for sure at every stop that I haven't seen in so long. And live poker I miss. I also find that fun for sure. It's both an interesting game, I was going to say, with more new aspects, different aspects. And I've been missing it, man. Like all the stops as well as the places, it's been such a long time. I was thinking before, since I've seen so many people from all those stops. And Melbourne, I was thinking I would have been in Barcelona just now as well.
I love the Barcelona in summer as well. I'm a fan.
So I love touring those stops as well. Like I try and have a bit of leisure time as well, outside of just only playing poker as well. So that would be nice, because right now it's staring out my window and it's completely grey. I'm like, oh man, I'd rather be in Bali.
Say, where are you?
I'm in
the world.
Southampton.
Okay. I'm Edinburgh, so I'm used to the same skies.
Nice.
I mean, it's up there, but we get the same sky, so it's cool.
Similar.
Benny, thanks for taking the time today. It was a pleasure to get to know you a little bit better. Where can people follow along with your poker career? Are you on any social media and anything going on like that?
I'm on Twitter at Benny Glaser, and that's pretty much it, really. I could probably post there more often than I do. But that's probably the only place, aside from reporting sites that have been reporting a lot of the online stuff lately.
Right.
And I should make more of an effort to post more on Twitter. But
the people want to know. Benny Glaser. I'm gonna make sure I'm on there on Twitter. I'm gonna follow along, and it's good to know that I've been saying your last name wrong the whole podcast, right at the end of the podcast. That's so great. Thank you, Benny.
I don't normally make an effort to correct people anymore because it's just standard. But yeah, it's fine. I'm not bothered.
I won't make the mistake again. No, but hey, I appreciate the time. Thank you.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks for having me on, Jamie. It's fun.
Big thanks to Benny for taking the time this week. It was a pleasure to talk to him, someone at the very top of the game. Awesome to hear what he thinks about things in poker, etc. So big thanks to Benny. Join us on the podcast now, the micro main event champion, Luis Constantino. Luis, thanks so much for taking the time today. First of all, congratulations on your victory. Can you sum up how the event went for you and how you managed to pull off the win?
O evento, ele começou de modo um pouco difícil, assim, eu lembro que eu perdi fichas no início, e aí eu tenho, mas como um jogo você começa muito deep stack, eu fui levando ele com paciência ali, né, foi uma tela que eu joguei o dia 1 no domingo, então fiquei no cantinho dele ali, né, jogando mais valores, esperando mais pro final do dia eu consegui impor um pouco assim meu jogo, consegui passar com um stack bem grande ali, fui ganhando os flips tal, e ganhando mãos importantes, passei com stack legal. Já no dia 2 eu adotei como um field muito grande, né, a gente sabe que tem uma variância maior, é mais difícil de chegar, adotei uma estratégia um pouco mais agressiva, que é até um pouco característica do meu jogo, para tentar ficar com big stack ali, conseguir, né, galgar a reta final e poder, né, tentar de repente chegar num torneio contra esse. E quando fui pro dia 3, eu confesso que eu fui bem confiante ali, não me preocupei em momento nenhum assim com a mesa, peguei mesas difíceis, joguei com jogadores extremamente capacitados ali, na mesa semi ali ficamos bastante tempo jogando com pads, mas via de regra assim, eu tentei não criar expectativa sobre o torneio, né, porque esse é um torneio muito difícil de chegar, né, todo mundo quer, mas em contrapartida, quanto mais perto foi chegando ali, eu fui criando umas confianças, mas acreditando muito naquilo, acreditando que eu podia fazer, que só o primeiro lugar interessava, que era aquilo que eu queria, que é um torneio que vai impactar, vai marcar na minha carreira, vai deixar eu ter algo para contar, né? Algo para passar para alguém, é uma coisa que representa muito para mim, para a escolha que eu fiz e para o que eu quero para minha vida.
So with it being such a big field and such a massive tournament, did you expect to do so well? Were you expecting to win the event?
Confesso, quando o dia 2 encerrou, que passaram os 56 jogadores para o dia 3, eu vim bem confiante, assim, o tempo inteiro eu acreditava que aquele torneio era meu, que tudo ia acontecer, e de fato, né, as coisas aconteceram, eu rolei muito bem, ganhei os flips, as mãos importantes, e é isso.
What was going through your mind when you called Kim's shove heads up and you both had ace-jack?
Assim, o meu adversário era um cara muito duro, assim, né, o jogo dele era muito sólido e era um cara que a gente tinha que evitar, mas num jogo heads-up eu não tinha como, né, jogar de maneira diferente, ao meu ver, ali, né, eu tinha que tribetar, dar a chance dele errar ali, e quando eu vi o showdown, né, até pensei, falei, caraca, não tem jeito, né, sempre tem, mas quando apareceu aquelas duas espadas no flop, assim, deu aquela sensação de que eu acho que vai ser, aí o Tânia arrumou espadas e no River ali, eu confesso que mesmo antes de bater já tinha aquela sensação que aquilo ia acontecer acho que era meu mesmo.
What are you planning to spend your prize money on?
Foi o maior prêmio da minha carreira, eu não... Como esse ano é um ano de sair, eu pretendo não me preocupar com isso agora, vou concluir esse ano, terminar todas as séries e no final do ano ver o meu saldo, imaginar, pensar em algum tipo de investimento de baixo risco, separar uma grana legal para eu não precisar me preocupar com dinheiro durante o período e continuar fazendo o que eu quero, o que eu gosto, o que eu sei fazer.
What is your history in poker? How often do you play and how did you get into the game?
Eu comecei a jogar em meados de 2012 e eu trabalhava, né? Então comecei a jogar recreativamente com amigos, em clubes live, né? E em 2013, assim, eu comecei a jogar e percebi que existiam pessoas que ganhavam dinheiro com o jogo, né? Com com o poker. E eu comecei a me aproximar delas, né? Os caras ali do live, que iam no live, mas eram do online, eram conhecidos da galera, do pessoal mais velha guarda. E, pô, eu tentava tirar informação ali, entender como é que eles ganhavam, por quê e tal. E comecei a ver que dava para ganhar, que dava para estudar, e que o jogo, ele era, né? Era uma forma que eu podia ter de complementar minha renda, que eu trabalhava na época, né? Era casado, tenho filho. E começou assim. E eu comecei a trabalhando jogando. Em 2013, ali, meio de 2013, eu tinha um gráfico já sólido ali, ganhava um pouco. Eu participei do time Steel Team, joguei com o João Bauer lá, foi o time que me deu um pontapé muito show. Fiquei lá até 2014. Depois eu joguei um período por conta, acabou não dando certo, quebrei. Aí fui jogar no time do Felipe Nunes, do Flow. Maravilhoso, tive experiências ótimas. E cheguei, né, a jogar o que eu queria, só que naquele momento eu decidi que eu não me aceitava como jogador de pôquer. Eu nunca me aceitei que era aquilo que eu jogava, que eu ia fazer isso para o resto da minha vida, que era uma profissão. Eu não via aquilo para um pai de família, não via aquilo para um homem mais velho. Eu não me aceitava. E tomei algumas outras decisões, fiz investimentos, tentei fazer outra coisa da minha vida, não deu certo. E tive um problema de saúde também, e por conta foi um dos motivos que eu decidi parar, preocupado com a minha vida, né? Porque a gente se dedica muito, eu jogo 12 horas por dia, jogo 6 dias por semana, eu sou um cara que eu sou muito focado no que eu faço. E aí fiquei um período trabalhando off-poker e jogava recreativamente e tal, e quando foi, mesmo assim, ainda jogava bastante, um volume bem considerável. E quando foi 26 de março de 2019, eu vinha de um período bem ruim na minha vida, tudo vinha dando errado. Eu decidi, percebi o que eu sabia fazer, o que eu podia, né, tomar um rumo na minha vida, e falei, pô, é isso que eu quero, eu gosto muito, penso nisso todo dia, por que eu não me aceito? E aí eu entrei em contato com um cara chamado Marcos Schetti, e nesse dia, foi alguns dias antes, mas no dia 26 de março foi o dia que me aceitaram no Forbet, e a partir desse dia tudo mudou, tudo vem dando certo, lógico, me esforçando pra caramba, tive um ano mega difícil em 2019, e veio meu primeiro big hit, que foi o Sunday Million, e é mais ou menos isso que eu quero falar mesmo.
Big thanks to Louise for taking the time, and once again, big congrats on the result. Now, before I let you all go this week, I got to reveal the 10 winners of the Die with Zero book contest. All you had to do was chime in on Twitter using the hashtag JSPokerHero, answer our question, and you were in the running for a signed copy from Mr. Bill Perkins himself. Now, the winners are at Ta5090, at TK6161, at Jamie Molyneux 12. I'm trying to learn French, but I really screwed that up, man. I'm sorry. At Ka Williamson, at Simon Planisek, at Khalid49, Icecoved, at Dajintz, at Borind11, and at Caldemus. Holy smokes, man. Reading Twitter names is tough. You're all going to receive a copy of the book. Make sure to send a DM to Party Poker with your address and your full details so that we can get that to you. This week, the question for the hashtag JSPokerHero. That's right. I snuck it in at the end, you guys. Some people have already turned it off. Don't do that. We're giving something away here, okay? The 100K guaranteed WPT Micro Turbo Championships takes place this Sunday. How much does it cost to buy in this Sunday? The deadline to enter is 7 p.m. this Sunday. You must use hashtag JSPokerHero. The winner will be awarded with a package of 5 $22 Party Poker MTT tickets to use on daily specials. There you go. $110 in MTT tickets. All you got to do is just answer that skill testing question. Once again, how much does it cost to buy into the Micro Turbo Championships this Sunday? That's going to be it for the podcast this week. Thank you all so much for taking the time. I hope you enjoyed it. iTunes, please rate, okay? I need to let Party Poker know, hey, people are actually listening to this thing. This is good. That Jamie guy, I like him. That's what I need you to do. That's basically what you're doing by rating. Like, okay, Jamie, letting people know. Thank you, by the way, for doing that. Spotify, I don't even really know what you can do on Spotify. Just Live your life, Spotify. And YouTube, like, comment, subscribe. I would appreciate that very much. Thank you all so much for the time. But until next week, we'll see you later.